This is the Retirement Key Podcast with Pat Volk, financial advisor of Abish Financial Services.
And I'm Heather Branch here with Pat, asking for his ideas on the things you can get to work on right now as you prepare for your financial future. At Abish Financial, we call it the second phase of your financial life, your retirement years you have worked so hard to earn and save. And Pat and Abe, the entire team at Abish Financial Services, are now here to help you figure out ways to make your money work for you. The retirementkey.com is where you can begin that conversation. We also have links posted in the show notes, or again, find us anytime at theretirementkey.com. All right, I want to talk about parents and our relationships with parents, and everybody's got parent relationships, but even the conversation is even more poignant for you. If you've not listened to Pat on the podcast before, discuss his family. First of all, a very proud father, 5 children.
Yes.
4 are still in the house. Is that correct?
4 are still in the house.
And let's talk about the one that is not in the house. I was talking to some colleagues of mine, and I was like, oh my gosh, Pat Volk, he's such a proud father. But the one son that's in Africa for the Peace Corps.
He's in Zambia.
I mean, it's just the pride that is exuded out of Pat for all of your kids. But I mean, anybody that would say, my child in the Peace Corps, right? Like
all of them have their own journey, their own destination. He went on a bit of an adventure, and I'm very, very proud. He actually helped deliver 2 babies earlier in the week.
And, that's amazing.
Yep, they named one of them after him. So there is a child in Zambia named Patrick wandering around.
That is amazing.
It is. It's really, it's quite amazing just to see the interactions. We get to speak with his family because we have like a WhatsApp and we can just talk to them all. And it seems, very peaceful, seems to be enjoying it. It is, very difficult, but I think he's at peace, and that's all that matters.
That's awesome. Well, like I was saying, you're a proud papa of 5 kids. Now, how many? I was asking you earlier. You did not yourself come from that many siblings. You have 2 siblings.
Yeah, I have 2 siblings. Okay. I have an older brother, older sister, and then just myself.
Okay.
Yeah, and Brenda and I, honestly, we always thought we were going to have 3, and then we got the twins. So we went from a man-on-man to a prevent. And then
suddenly I threw more children than you had hands. Yeah.
And then we were like, what the hell?
Right.
A pen for a penny and for a pound.
We've
and
got
we had a 5th.
We've come this far. Let's keep going. Absolutely.
Exactly.
All right. Well, now let's talk about, let's flip the story upward and talk about the relationship with your parents, because thinking about, and this is something that I've thought about too, because my mom and dad they both have very interesting lives and stories. And I'm always like, man, I need to, because I have this studio access, right? I'm like, I need to get mom and dad in here and just ask them some stories and record some of their memories, because, dear listener, ask yourself, when was the last time you talked to your parents and just asked them questions, stories about their lives? Spencer Wise, who's behind a website called Tales.com, he decided he needs to go ahead and do it himself with his own parents, and sooner than later.
I sat my parents down and I interviewed them, just like I was the host of a podcast. And I spent an entire afternoon asking them all about their life, questions about their childhood, their teenage years, how they met, a bunch of different stuff. And while I was asking them these questions, I was learning stories that I had never heard before, like how my dad bribed my mom with a rug to go on their first date. And that's a story that I had never heard in my entire life before then.
Listen, you never know what your dad had to do to convince your mom to go out with him.
Exactly.
There are many different directions we could go in this conversation, Pat, but I just thinking about how important family obviously is to you. It makes me think about conversations with our parents and the work that you do, finances, estate, long-term care. When working with your clients, and maybe your clients, their parents are still alive, or they come in and they've got 3, 4, 5 kids like you and your wife.
Yeah.
And they're adult children. Do you encourage conversations? Do you encourage them to bring their kids in or their parents in? How do you help to facilitate these very important conversations to be had among families?
Yeah, I would say oftentimes with our clients, they are nearing retirement. Yeah. So they tend to be maybe in their late 50s, mid 60s.
Yeah.
So they do have adult children, but long-term care doesn't really, rise to the occasion. But what I would always say is, have you spoken to your children about what you have? Have you spoken to your children about how you may wish to have things passed along? Mm-hmm. And that is a difficult subject to breach. Parental relationships aren't the same in every family.
Yep.
And, in listening to Spencer, I kind of got a kick when I was listening. It's like he sat down and interviewed his parents. I don't know if that would be something that most people would be comfortable with.
Really?
I don't know if I could, and I have an extremely close relationship with my mom. I don't think I would sit and interview her.
About her life? Like, tell me about where you grew up.
I tend to think it just comes, naturally.
Got it.
Engaging. I tend to also collect a lot of things. I have letters from my grandparents that they wrote me when I was a child.
Yeah.
And I think these things are important. What I would almost say, if it's a difficult topic to breach, because if you have a good relationship, let's just admit it's probably coming up.
Right.
I would hope it is.
Right.
But if your parents have gone through something with their parents, that's a great opportunity to say, hey, mom and dad, what were your thoughts when you were going through this with grandma or grandfather?
Okay.
Where were your concerns? What was going on between your siblings? Because now what you're doing is you're personalizing it.
Okay.
This was their challenge. This is how they had to meet that expectation. And then that's a great opportunity for you to say, how would you like me to approach it with you? Because now they're thinking, geez, I wish my mom and dad had done this or this. This would have made things easier. Now I can take that information and help my children, because this is really how we would want it done. So, Bill and Julie, this is how we have things set up. I do think it's important that you also let the children know, are we looking as if we're in good shape financially, or is there maybe a potential issue out here? Somebody needs to know.
The person you're working with, and if they have concerns?
If they have concerns. We bring up financial problems all the time. I have had folks wanting to retire and they feel they can't because they're supporting their children, their adult children. Again, difficult conversations.
Are these conversations that you've helped people?
I do. And there's not an easy answer all the time. This is when, personal relationships, family relationships can be extremely touchy.
Yeah.
This is where I do think communication is always the best. Try to keep things out in the open. If you don't have good relationships, you're going to have to, again, see, is this really what you're looking for? Just because it's your family, are you required to help them? I know a lot of people that don't have good relationships with their family as well.
Yeah.
So I think everybody wants to be a little bit broad, find out what's going on, though. And I tend to be maybe a little bit more gentle of, hey, if something happened, do you have a financial advisor that I could talk to? Because I don't know where any of your things are. Do you have an attorney that you've gone to, Mom? I don't know if you've set anything up. And if their answer is no, I really haven't, then that's where you say you really need to do this. It's not for you, Mom. It's for me. And that's always what I say when it comes to estate planning is that you're either going to spend all your money or you're going to leave something behind. I don't know any other option. So let's assume you're leaving something behind. All we're asking is that you do so in an orderly manner. Write a letter, get a will, get a trust. Just help those families out.
Which is easier to do now more than ever. I mean, you can literally go online. There's websites where you can have getawill.com. I'm not saying that's an actual website.
No, exactly.
So
there's plenty of resources. I would always suggest going to an attorney.
Yeah.
But then once you've kind of covered, hey, if something happens, do you have some of the documents? Do you know what's going on? But now you've kind of into it. Now you can start talking. Wow. Do you have any life insurance? Do you have long-term care? If you were to go into a facility, Mom, I don't want to sell your house. And, do we need to go into your assets? What do you have? You need to breach this because you are eventually going to be responsible for it. And if I'm going to be held responsible, I need accountability. You never take on responsibility without accountability.
And you want to, I think that even if you have strained family relationships, at the end of the day, you want to honor what that person would want more than anything.
Yes.
It's the question of, what do you want? If I am in this situation, what would you want me to do?
Well, after somebody passes away, you're not going to resolve the problems.
Right.
Guaranteed. It's not going to happen.
Right.
It's done.
Right.
And that needs to, nobody knows, when it's suddenly going to happen, but it's going to happen to everybody. We are all going to pass away. So difficult conversations, yes. Maybe a little bit awkward, yes. Better than the alternative, absolutely.
You talked about your mom, so I mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you point blank. Have you asked your mom questions? What do you and your mom?
Oh, very much so. No, I actually have everything set up for my mom.
Okay.
But yeah, no, my father passed away very young.
Yeah.
He was only 51.
Yeah.
And my mom was 47 at the time,
Wow.
did not have any understanding of anything.
Wow.
I was in college, and that was really the event that got me into financial planning. I was thinking of becoming an attorney at the time, but with everything that occurred, ended up meeting up with a financial planner my mom had worked with.
Yeah.
And he was the one who helped really get me into Goldman Sachs at the time. Great gentleman.
Yeah.
And those are, I ended up helping my mom, refinance the house. We have everything invested. I have my sister as primary on a lot of things, not because I can't handle it. It's that my mom and sister are attached at the hip. She tends to be a little bit of a neutral player in the family, say between my brother and I. And it's somebody who I trust to do the right thing. And I know would seek my advice. I'm willing to offer it. I'm there. But there's always a lot of subtleties that you deal with. A lot of people would say, Pat, why aren't you in control of your mom's finances? Well, I'm distant. I'm in Virginia. She's in New York, so I'm not there all the time. And I do know everything that's happening, but let things happen the way that is best for the family. My ego's not been out of shape. If I took control, my brother might get a little bit irritated, so I'll step away and let somebody else handle it. As long as it's done properly, my ego's not involved.
That's a good point, too, I think, also, what you're making about your sister. And that's, I have to assume something else if there's complicated situations within families, that's something you would encourage. Like, who in the family is a good mediator? Who's neutral?
Yes. Who's the peacemaker?
Yeah.
Who's the one that, and I would even say as the youngest child, I was always the peacemaker, but I know my sister is what I consider to be Switzerland.
Got it. Got it.
So
every family's got a Switzerland.
Well,
If
she's
you're
with my
listening to
mom
this
all the time.
right.
They're all over the place with each other. So I'm like, who cares?
Anybody listening to this podcast right now immediately thought of the family member that's the Switzerland in their family.
Yes,
We've all
everybody
got
has
one.
it. Maybe put them in charge of a few things. It doesn't mean they need to have financial expertise.
Yeah.
It just makes things easier because they can communicate. That's what this is about. It's about communication. I've seen families torn apart arguing over china cups after somebody passes away. That's a lack of communication. That's a lack of settling some problems.
Yeah.
And again, that's more of a personal, I don't want to get too philosophical here, but you need to address these things. They're not going to go away.
The thing we constantly go back to in these conversations is the idea of it can be complicated. It can feel stressful. I think the stress is what really causes people to avoid the overall retirement plans, the estate planning. It's just like, it's stressful.
It's going to be more complicated if you don't address it.
But also, you don't have to do it by yourself. That's
where you come in.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, do you need life insurance? Do you need long-term care?
Yeah.
If you currently have a long-term care policy, is it going to work for you?
Yep. Or do we need to update it?
Do we need to update it? I mean, if you have life insurance, maybe you had term insurance, but you don't need it anymore.
Yep.
Again, let's do a full evaluation. It isn't just about retirement income. That's what we focus on. But we don't want to make certain that we're leaving everything you've accumulated appropriately and efficiently, tax efficiently to your family. That's what this was all about.
Yeah. And at Abish Financial Services, we're here to help you get to work on all of these things. Pat Volk, Senior Financial Advisor at Abish Financial. He and the entire team, Abe Abish, everybody there ready to help you get to work figuring out these things, not just for yourself, but for your family as well. There is a lot to consider, but again, you don't have to go it alone. TheRetirementKey.com is where you can start the conversation. Let's get to work helping you create these communications within your own family and ensuring that you have things set up the way that they need to be. We also have links posted in the show notes, so you can just click there or again, visit us anytime at TheRetirementKey.com.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Key Podcast. Be sure to listen to the Retirement Key radio show, Saturdays and Sundays on WMAL.
Investment advisory services offered through Abish Financial Wealth Management, LLC, number 310633, a registered investment advisor firm. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Abish Financial Services is licensed in your state, please call 571-577-9968. Abish Financial Services is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Abish Financial Services, Inc., Virginia Insurance License number 127820.